Hi, thank you for downloading Faraway Fan. I just like to ask you if I can to rate the show. It'll help introduce us to new listeners. And you can also find us on Instagram and Twitter at Faraway Fan Pod. That's Faraway Fan Pod. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy the show.
I'm Rohan and I'm a fan of Liverpool Football Club.
Hi, Ron.
Hi,
How are you doing? I'm good. Thanks that we could do this.
No problem.
And at this lovely late hour on a Friday night.
Yeah, it's been pending a while.
Yeah, so we've been chatting a bit.
Yeah.
And I'm really keen to hear some more.
Mhm.
But as it has become customary on the pod, I must ask you the very first question.
Okay.
How was the coconut water?
Coconut water is excellent. I'm actually not a huge fan of the drink itself, but it's good.
Really?
I can take it at 9 o'clock at night.
So tell me, how and why Liverpool?
So I think it's been a family thing. My dad's a Liverpool fan. My uncle's a Liverpool fan. His son is a Liverpool fan. I think it started with my uncle when he moved to England sometime in the 1980s, and it just kind of went from there. And I picked up on this around about when we won the Champions League in 2005.
Okay.
I didn't actually watch it at that point. I haven't watched the match at all since then, except for like the highlights of the goals.
Okay.
But there was excitement, and I think I picked up on that and kind of started from then.
So your uncle, you said he lives in Liverpool?
He used to live in Liverpool. He moved to England back in the 80s sometime, and I think he moved to Liverpool at some point. He lives just outside London now.
Okay. So he was like a proper Liverpool fan with a
Yeah,
season ticket and
he is a proper Liverpool fan with a season ticket now. I'm sure back then he was some kind of Liverpool fan. Yeah, but I know he definitely goes to like 5 or 10 games a season now, I think.
because you brought up 2005
Hmm.
and you haven't even seen the highlight.
I've seen the highlights, of course. Everyone's seen the highlights.
Okay.
But it seems like it would be a very painful 45 minutes to watch, followed by, everyone's going to watch those 3 goals anyway, and then the penalty shootout. So I've seen all the good bits.
What I wanted to do was just go through with you the 2005
Mhm.
match, if
Yeah.
we can,
Sure.
if you're up for it.
Mm-hmm.
So Maldini scores in the very first minute.
Mm-hmm.
A 36-year-old Maldini
Yep.
scores in the very first minute.
Right.
Then Liverpool gets it into the box. Appeal for a handball.
Yep.
Denied. Milan get it on the counter.
Yep.
And score.
Score again.
Again.
Yeah.
This is the 36th minute
Mhm.
now. Crespo gets the ball, puts in another.
Yep.
It's the 44th minute.
Mm-hmm. 3-0 at halftime.
3-0 at halftime. Okay. And the crowd starts singing, "You Will Never Walk Alone."
I've seen the highlights. So yeah, it's I haven't honestly had the chance to experience that myself, but I'd love to. I'd love to be in a match where we came back from 3-0 down and watch that
That's
live.
some
Yeah.
comeback, man. Because, and I was watching it and it had to be Gerrard, right?
Yeah.
To score that.
It had to be.
It had to be. So I'm watching it and, you see that first goal go in and there's this kind of glimmer of hope.
Yeah,
And-
I think it gave us something to fight towards.
Hmm.
So it's kind of similar to the Barcelona match, which I'm sure we're going to talk about at some point. Yeah. So goal in the 7th minute, I think it was, or maybe the 8th minute, and things just kind of picked up from there. So I wasn't going to watch that match, the Barcelona one.
Okay.
I'd pretty much given up on it, and I figured I'll just wake up the next morning and see what the results are. And for some reason or the other, I stayed awake. I figured I'd watch 10 minutes and go to sleep, and then Divock Origi scores in the 7th minute. And I don't know if you remember, the rest of the first half was pretty quiet. Like it was a good match, but nothing much really happened. Okay. And at some point, Messi missed a goal that he'd normally score in his sleep. Right. And my wife and I were both watching it. So at that point, I told her, things are not going Barcelona's way. We're going to win this game. It must have been like the 30th minute. We were 1-0 up in the game, 3-1 down on aggregate. And it just felt like we were going to win. And 1 hour later.
It's hard to be a neutral in this when you have a comeback like this.
Mhm.
it's hard because by this point you've kind of picked a side.
Yeah.
Even if you're a neutral, and at this moment everyone's a kind of a Liverpool fan. You've seen, you know, that moment, that feeling. I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking, man, this guy.
It's a feeling, and everyone loves the underdog.
Everyone loves the underdog.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a running theme here in the pod. In fact.
Yeah, but I mean, it must have been quite something to be there on that night. So my uncle, who started this whole thing in our family, he was there that night at Istanbul.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he and his son had both gone, if I have the story right. And yeah, must have been the night of a lifetime. I'd love to have been there for that.
What was your first match that you saw after that?
I don't honestly remember. So I probably started watching a few matches, in the mid 2000s. And then I spent a couple of years in England, in living in Manchester between 2008 and 2010. I watched a couple of football matches live there. Mm-hmm. None of them Liverpool. I didn't even go to Anfield, right? And but that's when I really started watching it seriously. And I think I probably became crazy about it in the 2013-14 season, back when we almost won it. And
we'll get to that. We'll get to that a little later. So have you been to Anfield?
I have not. No, it's on my bucket list. I've never been to Liverpool, but it's on my list of places to go. So when I was living there, it just didn't happen. Too busy, not enough money, too far away, whatever, some combination of all of it, student life. And I haven't actually been there since. So it definitely needs to change. I've been waiting for the right match to be able to plan a trip there.
You think you'd try and make it for the last few games, maybe?
So from what I've read and heard, this season, it's impossible to get tickets at any kind of affordable prices. There was a point at the beginning of the year when I considered buying a ticket to a random late match in the season. I think it was maybe not the Chelsea match, one of the last games of the season. And I never ended up. And I'm told that now you can't get a ticket for anything short of a couple of £1,000. So, yeah. So not this time, but sometime soon.
Okay, so who are the biggest rivals for Liverpool?
The biggest rivals? Domestically, Everton has to be on the list, just because they're Everton and, it's the derby. But I think more realistically, it's probably City now. At least in my head, they're the biggest rival. City versus Liverpool versus City, they're the biggest games of the season for me. People say United, but like every United game I've ever watched has been an absolute anticlimax. It's defensive. Both teams have kind of played pretty averagely and it's gone nowhere. The City games are on fire from the moment they start to the moment they end. So yeah, City is the name for me for the moment.
Now I'm coming to the good part, which is, I asked you, who is your club legend?
Yeah. So it's got to be Gerrard. Right? There's no other name that any Liverpool fan can put up there. The sad part for me is that a lot of Gerrard happened before I really started watching Liverpool seriously, right? But from all accounts and from whatever I have watched, he was a presence on the pitch, right? Players kind of like, he gave the game a lot of direction. He controlled the game in his own way. And also, every once in a while, he'd pop up with those shots from 40 yards out and score an absolutely crazy goal. Not to mention the goal he scored at Istanbul and so on. So I think he did everything short of win a Premier League title, which is definitely one of the things I most regretted about that 2013-14 season.
And Gerrard is very emotionally driven.
Yeah,
you get this feeling that, that he's got the pressure of the world on him.
Yeah. So I think that was definitely true in the last couple of seasons, 2013-14, as well as the next one when I think Liverpool weren't doing quite so well and it was likely his last season. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of pressure on him at that point. But from like all the highlights I've seen of Gerrard over the years, he had so much emotion. He went nuts every time either he or the team scored a goal. And yeah, I think every team needs at least one player like that, probably more, but at least one. I think Henderson's very similar in that way. Like you see him going all over the pitch, screaming at everyone, going out of his mind every time someone scores, when he scores even. So yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels to be drawn there.
I don't think we'll see that sort of a player again. One club man. In this era, it might be a little rare.
Yeah.
There to have
Yeah.
somebody of that kind, a captain who's there throughout, came up through the academy.
Yeah, so people are saying that now about who, about Trent Alexander-Arnold, right? So I don't know. He's still 21. He's hopefully got 15 years of his career left. But who knows? Maybe he could be the next.
He could be.
He could be. He's shaping up to be it for sure. So I think he checks off everything you mentioned. Academy boy, local Liverpool.
You see him as captain?
Yeah, I think if he sticks around for sure. Like maybe 4, 5, 6 years down the line. If he's still in Liverpool or that, he's the captain. No question about it.
Of course, those crosses of his are wonderful.
They're outstanding. Yeah, he's been one of the most exciting players to watch this season for sure. And it feels like when he has an off day, Liverpool has an off day. It's actually like almost that connected. And I was listening to another podcast actually about Liverpool. I don't quite remember which one. And they were talking about the fact that he as a player, like his style of play is almost entirely down to Klopp. Because Klopp's the only manager who would play him in this kind of position. And in this position, allow him to do the kind of stuff that he's good at. Because he still doesn't play regularly for England, which is quite amazing.
Yeah.
Considering that his competition, I think, is Kieran Trippier and Kyle Walker, both of whom are perfectly competent, but I don't think either of them is as exciting to watch as Trent, for sure.
So we have to talk about the slip now.
The slip, yeah. Do we have to? Can we just not skip past that and just move on? So Liverpool at this stage, it was, I think, 3 games to go in the season, if I'm not wrong. We just lost Henderson to a red card the previous game, right? And a lot of people are saying this season that, Henderson's influence that season was understated, right? So 3 games to go. The season was in our control at that point, right? If we won and, City could do what they wanted and we'd have the title. And Mourinho at Anfield, I think it was, yeah. And from minute 1, the game was just defensive. It looked like, watching the game 10 minutes in, it kind of looked like the game could just easily go to a 0-0 draw, which would have been fine. Right? I think if I remember the numbers right, that we would still have won the title, or it would have still have been in our control at that point. But that slip, it was painful to watch.
Now, there's something a little ironic about it. I don't know if you notice this. In the goal celebrations later, there's a familiar face there. One, Mohamed Salah.
Oh, really? I haven't actually noticed that. But yeah, I'm happy that whole story can be turned around now. And it would be delightful if we could have won the title by beating Mourinho. But I think we've played both our games against him this season, so that's not going to happen. But yeah, the slip was painful. It was not my favorite game to watch. And it was one of those things where, I draw parallels to the Watford game of last week. Everything in the season had been going so perfectly up to that point. And then that game just shut it down. So I'm hoping Watford is just a blip this season, but we'll see.
So I'm going to ask you now about people who you feel didn't get their praise while at the club or still at the club.
Yeah, so I think Henderson is the obvious name there. The problem with Henderson was up until maybe last season, people weren't really sure what he was doing, what he was there for. There always seemed like there was a better choice in midfield. But I think this season he's upped his game a bit for sure. He's he provides so much more energy on the pitch this time. He's provides direction. And you can see that he's being missed now. I think he's not been played the last 3 games, and you've seen what's happened. So I'm not saying it's just down to Henderson, but there's certainly something there.
So that captain's influence.
Yeah, the captain's influence. Just the fact that he's actually a more creative midfielder than pretty much anyone else in our midfield at the moment, I think. He has had 2 or maybe 3 fantastic assists so far this season, a couple of decent goals. So it's not just the captain's influence. He's also doing the real numbers stuff on the pitch. Yeah. And that's something I think in our midfield at the moment is definitely a bit of a problem.
I can see that why people would make the reference, and even you have just now, to Gerrard. though he may not be that kid who came through the academy and all of that, but there's just somebody who kind of imbibes the spirit of the club.
Yeah. And he may not be the kid who came through the academy, but at this point, I think he's been at Liverpool almost 8 years, which is something in itself. I don't know how many footballers actually stick around at a single club for 8 years. It's the next best thing to being a, one club footballer, I think. So, but yeah, he's quite something. I've enjoyed watching him play this season. That's for sure.
The name you mentioned was Firmino, which I was surprised about.
Yeah. Why does that surprise you?
I think people talk about him. I think he gets
So I think he gets overshadowed by the players to the left and right of him.
Right.
For sure. And fair enough. I mean, Salah came in and he scored 43 goals or something in his first season. This year, Mane has been on fire for most of the season. So you can see why Firmino gets a little bit overshadowed by them. But just like with Henderson, he's so noticeable in the games he doesn't play. Like, there's no comparison as far as I'm concerned. So there was a time ago when, it's every football fan's question, right? Who's the one player at your club who you think your club would be in trouble if they got bought by Barcelona? And most of the people I spoke to used to say, Salah or Mane. Few used to say Van Dijk, and all fair enough. But I think there's a case for Van Dijk. But other than that, the only person I'd put up there is Firmino, because he seems to the front three definitely don't work without him. Like he's kind of the engine, and they score all the goals. That's what it feels like.
On this pod, we like to give some love to goalkeepers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, so Liverpool's had an interesting goalkeeping kind of history, haven't they, over the last few years? So Alisson's a bit quirky. Like he makes me very nervous at times, right? Less so this season. I think he's kind of toned it down a little bit. But there were certainly times last season when you could just see him, giving away an easy goal for no reason whatsoever. Right? I think it happened once or twice with Leicester with Leicester. I think that was the first stupid goal he ever conceded, trying to take on Vardy in his own penalty box or something. But yeah, other than that, he is absolutely outstanding. And like the one moment that kind of exemplifies that is his assist for Salah against United, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. Yeah, I don't think you could. I don't think any other goalkeeper definitely any other Liverpool goalkeeper, probably most other goalkeepers in the world wouldn't have been able to pull that off.
So this is where I bring in Van Dijk,
because
the goalkeeper we've talked about Alisson.
Yeah,
that's definitely, you guys went in, bought the most expensive goalkeeper
only for a week,
and the most expensive defender. That was it. Business done. You'll shut shop then.
Pretty much. Have we bought I don't think we made a big signing since.
No. And like you rightly mentioned, you saw that influence very clearly from him. He's also another one with great leadership.
Yeah. I think that's part of it, since you brought it up. Like, you can see him yelling at the back line for sure. And I have no doubt that keeps things, kind of steady. The kind of high line we are able to play now since Van Dijk came in, I don't have the stats or the numbers, but it looks like we're a good 10 yards higher up the pitch than we used to be.
I forget which game, but it was in the dying minutes of the game. You might remember and help me out here. It was the dying minutes of the game. There was an opportunity for a free kick, and Van Dijk's in the box, and he makes these gestures to Shaqiri, basically saying, Shaqiri, you take it. You just please take it.
Yeah.
And he goes on, he's yelling. Sure enough, Shaqiri then steps up. And I love that moment because, you see, and it's in moments like that, you can see that why he is such a big influence. That kind of decision, I don't think he may have been captain.
I can't remember who else was on the pitch. He might have been. Yeah.
Might have been captain. But that's proper leadership. And that's somebody who understands the game, who understands what his fellow player can do. And because and it was hilarious at the time.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching him. He's a tall guy, like you mentioned, waving his arms, yelling at Shaqiri to step up. And that was a really great moment and ended up winning. And the Origi, yeah.
And I'll tell you something. It's not a coincidence that every other central defender who plays alongside him looks fantastic. Right? It's happened with Gomez now, of course, and Gomez is great. But it also happened with Lovren, right? And I don't think too much of Lovren, right? It happened with Matip, right? It seems to happen to every player who plays alongside Van Dijk. They just look better. I'm sure there's something to it. One of the happiest sights I've ever seen on is I don't know if you've ever been to Amsterdam, but as you're landing, the only thing that catches your eye is there are just football fields everywhere.
Really?
Right? Yeah, like literally every village has a school. I guess it's a school, and that school has its football field. And as you land, if you're on a clear day, you can see like maybe 100 of these football fields just in 5 minutes.
Do you like to travel?
Yeah, I do. I love to. As often and as long as I